What were you stealing when you got busted?
Like some jewelry from me, like nothing crazy. It was actually like the lightest haul I'd ever had. So there's the like Rapy incident.
How significant was it?
It shook me up. None of my rapes were.
How many rapes?
Sounds fucking terrible. Every fucking Dwayne Reed in New York City, I think I stole like all the nail polish out of. I used to love stealing nail polish. I never really painted my nails, but I loved, when I was high, I just loved the colors. I thought they were so pretty.
We'll just start here.
Okay.
In the older than 50 world, McKenzie Phillips is a big deal.
Okay.
McKenzie Phillips was an actor. She is an actor, but she's a therapist now, and she's a horrible drug addict. And she was on a famous TV show called One Day at a Time.
Okay.
A million years ago.
Yeah, never heard of it. This is good. This is making me feel young.
You're very young.
Thank you.
How old are you?
I'm 35.
You're young.
I'm young. Yeah, you're right.
Do you feel young?
Sometimes.
Next to me?
Well, now that I don't know who this person is, then yes, I do.
It's like, is 50 that much older than 49? No, but it really is a lifetime.
Is it?
It's a lifetime in the day.
50 doesn't even seem that much older than 35 numerically.
But
culturally, like pop culture definitely makes a difference.
Are you aghast that you're sitting with a 50-year-old now?
No, not
Do you
at
think
all.
it undoes the potential of my show?
No.
Our show?
Absolutely not.
All right, good.
Maturity is good.
You feel the neuroses deep, right?
Yes, I do.
All
And
right.
I love them.
I'm in Alexis.
I relate.
I'm in my dad's apartment with Alexis.
Allegra.
God help
Really
us all.
close.
Well, you're into
Super
Alexis
close.
Haynes. So I figured that you're into Alexis Near.
That's what you have on your
I
mind.
Alexis Near is always on my mind.
Yeah, she's kind of hot.
So I'm in my dad's apartment with Allegra
O'Karmis. You're going to get it.
I'm in my dad's apartment with Allegra O'Karmis.
There you go.
Welcome.
You got it.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Allegra works at Mountainside.
Yes.
Do you run the continuing care program?
I do.
How is that?
It's good.
What does that mean?
So we have a team of case managers in the residential program, and they work with clients to set up aftercare services.
How did you get this gig? How did you run the department? You went to Mountainside.
I went to Mountainside in 2014, and I stayed in the area, and I got sober in spite of myself. And 5 years into my sobriety, I got a call from a man named John Jones.
John Jones.
John Jones. The John Jones.
Do you know that there's a character in DC comic books named the Martian Manhunter who's a Martian, and he poses on Earth as a detective named John Jones?
I did not know that.
So sometimes I wonder if John Jones...
I thought John Jones was a made-up person.
Well, it's
It
definitely
doesn't sound like a real human
it's
at all.
definitely a made-up name.
Come to find out, John Jones did my pre-screen when I called to come in.
So how did he find you to bring you in?
So I think I just stayed in the area. I was running a women's sober living at the time. We had opened this women's sober living, which there were not enough of. And I think people just knew kind of who I was in town. Not a lot of women get sober, period, full stop. And then also in Canaan, they don't stick around if they do. And so he called me and he said, hey, we have this position available. I think you'd be good at it.
What was the position?
As a continuing care case manager.
What do you do as that?
You meet with clients while they're in residential. Halfway through their stay, they get a recommendation from their clinician as far as what we feel would be most beneficial for them to maintain sobriety. And then we work with them on getting that set up. So
usually how much time does someone have like when you start working with them?
20 days sober, 18 days sober.
Is there like a checklist? Is it like you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this? Like what's the top 5 things you tell somebody with 20 days to do?
So it's more, they get a recommendation for a level of care. So like, do you need to be in an extended care program where you're there for a long time? Do you need to be in sober living where you have that extra structure and community and accountability? Or are you good to go home and do an IOP? That's usually, ideally, I think the minimum, right, is to go home and do an IOP.
I went to Mountainside in 2011. I came off one of the worst heroin benzo runs ever for me. It was a horrible run.
Yeah.
I had historically walked into a wall the week before I broke my nose. I had a huge black eye.
Yeah.
Walking into a wall.
Yeah.
And I went to a detox. It was before Mountainside had their own detox.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember the name of the detox.
Okay.
In Connecticut.
It was in Connecticut.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I literally shot heroin the whole ride out there.
Perfect.
It was glorious. And then I got there and people were like afraid to talk to me because I was so high with
You probably looked nuts.
with the big black eye and the broken nose. And then I completed 28 days of Mountainside. I left on my 2011, 20, I think I was 37.
Yeah.
I left on my 37th birthday, my birthday. And I didn't do any continuing care.
Perfect. Did you stay sober?
No.
Okay.
I didn't.
Good.
I wound up doing heroin the day I got home because I found a needle.
Oh no.
I found like a clean needle, like a new needle.
In your stuff?
Yeah.
That you had at treatment?
No.
Oh, okay.
And do you know the store Forbidden Planet?
Yeah.
So I had a really nice Forbidden Planet tote bag.
Okay.
And there was nice needles in the bottom of the bag. And I was like,
Can't let that go to waste.
I can't let that go to waste.
For sure.
So I wound up using, and then that was the last time I did heroin for years.
Okay.
But then I smoked weed and stuff.
Right.
But so
Which
I guess
it's manageable, right?
I mean
That's what I hear.
For some.
Yeah.
For some, But so getting into an IOP, like I claim like I didn't need it, and look at me, I'm coming up on 9 years, but they weren't. That was 20 years ago or something.
Yeah.
That was 15 years. I don't know.
I don't think the continuing care department, as I understand it, was born in like 2013.
So after I had failed,
Yeah.
they were like, this didn't work.
Yeah, and because of you, they were like, we need to figure something out.
Well, Chris stayed in the long-term treatment there for, I think, a year.
Yeah. Phase 4.
He did the 28-day program, I think, 4 times in a row. He just didn't leave.
He needed it.
He needed it, and then he like lived in phase 4.
Yeah, I went to phase 4.
How long were you in phase 4?
3 days.
And then what?
I was asked to leave.
What did you do?
I had trouble with, so it was a setup in my defense. Okay, it had been co-ed, then they made it all men, and then they decided they were going to make it co-ed again.
Oh boy.
So I was the first female. There was one other female there. She was in her 50s, and then me. I was 20. I turned 26 in treatment. I was 26. So they sent me over, and there was this gentleman that I was obviously in love with. You know, he had like a nice upper body. He'd been in prison. It was very much my type. We went over the same day, and we'd been on contract in Resi. So we had sex because that's...
Hold on, you had sex in residential or...
No, we had sex in phase 4.
Was it like the greatest sex you've ever had?
No.
Was it
Definitely
chartable?
not.
Was it chartable on the good sex
I don't
level?
really even remember it that well. I remember much more clearly the house manager opening the door.
And finding you in mid-coitus?
I think we were finished, but we were certainly in states of undress in the bed.
In the bed in phase 4. Why did you get contracted there?
I was contracted in Resi because we had gone on a hike and we came down in exclusive company.
And that was the contract?
The contract was we couldn't be an exclusive company.
So you had basically made the reservation for sex in phase 4?
No, so I wanted to go to this $10,000 a month sober house in Tribeca.
What was it called?
Tribeca 12.
Nice.
It was owned by Hazelden. And
does it still exist?
No, they closed it. I'm not sure, but I think Avenues is in the old Tribeca 12 house, but I'm not positive about that. But regardless, I wanted to go. I had this conversation with my dad I'll never forget. And I was like, I didn't finish college, just use that money. Like, I have to go there. Because there were kids going, and I wanted to go too. And he was like, absolutely fucking not. You're staying there. There's a free option. That's what you're doing. And I'm not coming to get you. And so I was like, well, then I'll just fucking be homeless. Like, I don't give a fuck. So they were chasing me around on my day of discharge. Like, what are you doing? How are you going to get out of here? No one's coming to get you. You don't have a plan. And so I said, okay, I'll go for a week while I figure it out. I didn't make it quite a week.
No, you fell in love.
And I fell in love.
Was the dude booted too?
Yeah, we were both kicked out, and we both ended up going to other sober livings in town.
Did you stay together kind of thing?
No.
The romance was dead?
Well, we talked. So we were, I don't know if we were together, but he ended up, like a week later, he got caught with a bottle of vodka under his bed at his sober house. So he was asked to leave that sober house. And he called me and he was like, I know one of your reservations is that you never shot up. I'm in a cab coming through town. I've got a pocket full of dope and a rig. Like, do you want me to scoop you up? We can go to this motel. And that was like the hardest decision I had ever made. I paced up and down the street like, what do I do? Do I go with him? And I decided not to, which I'm surprised with myself that I decided not to, but I decided not to. The next day I went and visited him in the motel. But anyway, he ended up going back to Mountainside and he kissed me at one of the open AA meetings.
Does he now run the Mind, Body, Spirit program there? Is it Twan?
He's dead. But
oh, he died?
But like similar. Yeah. He's
Besides
definitely running a Mind, Body, Spirit program somewhere.
In heaven. That's so sad. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. The sad part was he ended up getting sent to a program in Florida and then, we stopped talking at that point and he Facebook messaged me like this was probably 5 years ago now. It was probably like 4 years after. And he was like, hey, I'm back in Connecticut. Do you want to get together? And I was like, I don't know. I was trying to be nice.
How much time did you have when he asked you that?
3 years or so.
And you were deep in program.
Yeah. I knew better,
So you were really like, I don't know, or you were like, no
No,
way.
I was no, but I wanted to be nice.
Right.
And then he was like, a couple weeks later, he was like, I need help. Can you get me into Mountainside?
And you worked there at the time?
I didn't work there yet.
So how could you get him into Mountainside?
I don't fucking know. He was delusional. And I said, what kind of insurance do you have? I knew people over there. I could have sent his insurance card or whatever. And he was like, I have Husky, which is the Medicaid in Connecticut.
Right.
And I was like, you can't go to Mountainside with that insurance. I was like, but here's the website to find state resources. And then so he had this really funny mugshot that I thought was really funny from because he had messaged me saying how great he did in Florida and whatever. And I looked him up and I found all these mugshots from the last couple years of his.
What were the crimes?
Stealing, trespassing, breaking and entering, that kind of stuff, the classics. And he had this funny mugshot where he had a black eye. So I was telling somebody the story of his name, I won't say, but of him. And I was like, you got to see this mugshot. And I Googled him and I found his obituary. And he died like God. 2 weeks after he asked me for help. So that part was definitely sad. But
the whole thing is sad. It's also sad, like the number, like the percentage of people that we could be talking about that were in this situation and them being gone is not like a strange thing. It's not like an outlier. It's very much normal. Like one of the most common outcomes of this story.
Yeah.
And it's also like, it also makes me think about like all these people like that one, and I don't know what this is going to do for the show or for Mountainside. I might have to take it out. But it's like all these people that want to go to a super expensive, fancy treatment center. They hear me talking about it on the show and I make it sound so good and they can't go.
Yeah.
And that like, and then it's like, okay, so like that's reality. There's the haves, the have-nots. It's a capitalist world, whatever. I mean, I went to a million free detoxes that did nothing for me. And I went to Mountainside and used when I got home. Yeah. Treatment never was the answer for me, but I think it answers a lot of questions when you're there. It can provide a ton of support. It can give you a place to lick your wounds. But I think the other interesting thing is like when you gave him a way to seek out free resources, like that's hard. It's like I can't even fucking like look at a website and know what I'm looking at. And not just free resources. I mean, like somebody just sent me like a podcast convention. I was like, wait, where is it? Yeah. When is it? He's like, I
get overwhelmed. It's hard to read. I don't like, especially if it's a lot of information and I'm overwhelmed already. It just looks like Chinese. I can't figure it out. But your original question was, how did I end up in this role? So I stuck around. They called me. And I had said at some point in my sobriety, if I went to work at Mountainside, I wanted it to be in continuing care. Because kind of like you just said, treatment wasn't the answer. It was a starting point, but much more important for me was what I did after. I'm part of a recovery program, and I believe that, sure, if you do it 100%, at 100% throttle, it can work. with nothing else. But I don't know many people that have done that, you know? And so the other things that I did, I needed in order to stay sober.
Totally. And your phone is ringing, and it's this guy, and I'm not going to say his name. He's a nice looking fellow. How do you get, like, where does his picture come from? Oh, how does that even happen?
It's attached to his contact.
Is there a picture attached to mine?
No.
What happens when I call?
Nothing. I don't know. You've never called me. Have you?
I don't know. People are calling me and these beautiful pictures of them come up and I'm like, what the fuck is happening?
You have to attach a picture to your contact.
Do you have a picture attached to yours?
I do.
So when you call somebody, what do they say?
This.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I'm cute, aren't I?
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, I look happy.
Yeah. When Allegra and I first talked, the first thing she said was, yeah, I knew Chris and he hit on me. And then I thought he asked me to speak at a meeting, but I thought he was hitting on me. So I said no.
Yeah. That happened.
And Chris told a story on the show about, I was hoping it was about you, but it wasn't about you. It was about a woman named Francesca. But now I've confused your name with Alexa and Francesca.
Yeah, well, you can just marry them.
So let's go back to the Facebook messages with Chris.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is another thing that I bet you can do a lot of, which is read messages with dead people.
Yeah.
Which is it's a rough practice.
It can be. I try not to do it.
Right. People do it though.
Yeah, especially early on. Like I like to sit in my shit, you know? So like if I'm hurting, I want to make it hurt as bad as possible.
Like rip the wound off and scratch
like
it
I'll
to the
just
nub.
sit in it as long as I can because for some reason there's something pleasurable about that for me.
What is it you think?
I think I struggle to feel feelings in general. You know, like I dissociate like nobody's business, and I kind of love it because it's gotten me through
It's gotten you
life.
here.
Yeah, exactly. But I think because I struggle with that, I feel like I need to, like I'll watch YouTube videos of women dancing with like their brother or somebody, some other male in their family at their wedding because their dad died, just so that I can cry.
So you can feel something.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my kind of fucked up. But I thought this was a really sweet message I sent Chris.
Where did you meet him?
At a meeting, at the young people's meeting in Canaan. That was the first time I met Chris.
What year do you think it was?
2015, 16. So I had ended up going out and coming back in January 2015, which is my sobriety date. And I was, I went to a lot of meetings.
So you just celebrated 9 years?
Yeah.
Well, 6 months ago.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I'm about to celebrate 9 years in August.
Oh, cool.
Congrats. Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah.
Do you find it fascinating the people that you meet that got sober the same year?
Yes.
It's like
I do. I always wonder if we know the same people. Like, were we in rehab together?
It's like my first question. It's a graduating class of 2015.
Exactly.
I'm really interested in that.
And especially at this point in my sobriety, I think it's really interesting finding other people that are this much sober, for lack of a better word. Because I feel like I don't meet a lot of, they're either 2 to 5 years or 20 plus, I don't meet a lot of people in like prepubescent sobriety.
That's a thing you hear a lot. But I feel like I go to this meeting and like there were, I think 4 1 years. Like the anniversary was yesterday.
Okay.
There were 4 1 years. There were 2 3 years.
Okay.
Then there were 2 7 years.
Cool.
There was a 7, a 9, and a 23.
Oh, cool.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, back to Chris.
So I think you might enjoy this.
I definitely enjoy it.
So I texted Chris in 2017 or Facebook message, and I said, so this morning the melancholy just came over me out of nowhere, and I don't want to do anything at all. I feel as though I may never leave my couch. But I was scrolling Facebook and I started listening to the Dopey podcast and I found myself laughing, so I wanted to say thumbs up. Good shit. I appreciate it. I needed to laugh. I still haven't gotten off my couch, but at this point it's more of a choice, and it didn't feel like a choice an hour ago.
Nice. What did he say?
He said, thanks, Allegra. Glad you like it. Got a story to share sometime? ? I said, I'm sure I do.
Keep reading. I love hearing.
The podcast I listened to was just you two talking, so I don't know what kind of story exactly you want, but I'm sure I have one.
What did he say?
Funny using stories, whatever. All we really do is ramble now. We kind of went through all our big stories in the first 30 episodes. Which one did you listen to? And I said, I listened to the most recent one, I think. And yeah, I have plenty of using stories that I think are funny, although I've been told that my heroin jokes have a time and a place, never and nowhere. But it was my dad that said that.
What did he say?
LOL.
LOL?
Yeah.
Ha ha ha. LOL. And he wouldn't just say LOL, he'd say lol.
Out loud? When he said it out loud?
He'd say, I lolled at that, or something like that. I don't
really say that out loud very often.
No, Chris was a real individual. Mm-hmm. And then another really interesting thing about Allegra, besides the fact that you knew Chris and that you went to Mountainside and now run the continuing care, is that your father was on The Sopranos.
He was, yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I've come to appreciate it more now that he's dead.
You didn't appreciate it when he was alive. Well, you were using.
No.
When was The Sopranos over?
I know exactly when it was over. So one of the first times that my dad, so I think it was like 2007 or 2006. It was my freshman year of college. And they had a big series rock rap party at Top of the Rock. And my dad asked if I wanted to be his plus one. And I said yes. I went to school up at SUNY Binghamton, only for a couple months.
That's the Harvard of SUNYs.
It was at the time.
It's not anymore.
Everyone was very impressed.
Yes.
I don't know if it still is. I thought Stony Brook kind of superseded it, but I don't know.
That's interesting.
All right.
My daughter was born at Stony Brook.
Oh, well, great. That bodes well for her.
Anyway, keep going.
So he invited me to be his plus one. I said, yeah, of course. And I was doing a lot of drugs my freshman year of college, as one does, I think. And so I got so fucked up, I overslept, I missed my train into the city, and I just didn't say anything to him. So I just didn't show up for this party, which was the first kind of time that he knew things were really bad, because I didn't really miss parties. That wasn't something I would do. So he came up to visit. And I wasn't in my dorm room, and my roommate didn't know where I was because I hung out off campus with this frat. And he called me frantically, whatever. I rushed over there. And I didn't realize it till I got there, but there were no sheets on my bed. There were no clothes in the closet. There were razor blades all over my desk. And it looked like nobody lived there. And he was like, I don't like talking to you when you're strung out. I was like, I don't like talking to you when I'm strung out either. You can go, leave. So that's when The Sopranos ended. It started, the first season, I think I was in 7th grade or so.
Wow. And your dad, Allegra's dad, played Tony Soprano's dad,
yes.
Johnny Soprano.
Johnny Boy.
Which only existed in flashbacks.
Correct.
But did you watch The Many Saints of Newark?
No.
It wasn't
I
good.
watched 10 minutes of it. It was trash.
Yeah. Who plays Johnny in that?
I don't remember.
It was bad, though.
It was not good.
It wasn't as good as your dad.
It was not good.
Your dad was great.
He was good. So I didn't watch it as a kid. I wasn't allowed to. So I just took a stance that I was never going to watch it. So I finally watched it after he died. And then I was like, oh, yeah, this is a good show, which other people had known for quite some time, but I was late to the party. So I appreciated it more after that.
I feel like half of the Chris episodes are a good bunch. We just talked about The Sopranos.
People love it. It's like a thing.
But your father had a real strung out sort of persona as Johnny Boy.
Yeah.
Like you could see it in his eyes. Was he on drugs?
No.
He was just a fantastic actor.
I guess. Yeah. He was, my dad was very straight-laced, nerdy.
And he wasn't like a Goomba Italian guy?
No.
What an actor he is.
I know.
Everybody else on that show is straight Goomba.
I know.
And your dad's like
my
a
dad
Jewish
went to
professor
Stanford and NYU. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's so
big
funny.
Old nerd. But I mean, we come from an entirely Southern Italian family. My grandfather came here when he was 17 from Italy. He was an alcoholic and a bricklayer. So he had enough inspiration, I think, of what that person could be. But not him.
Yeah, like Tony would always talk about his forebears being bricklayers, masons from Southern Italy.
Yeah, I mean, that's
your
what it
story.
is. Yeah.
That's amazing. And you are like Tony Soprano in that your father was his father. Do you ever feel similar to Tony Soprano in that way?
I've never thought about that till now, although I did notice that they renamed the rest area right off the Tappan Zee Bridge, James Gandolfini rest area, which I thought was nice. I thought that's a nice
Did you ever
nod.
meet him?
I didn't.
You never met any of them?
No.
You know, Michael Imperioli was here.
I know.
And we
saw that.
reenacted a scene from
Did
The
you?
Sopranos.
Oh,
Amazing.
cool.
It was amazing.
That's very cool.
One of my very favorite dopey highlights, I have to say.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Manhattan.
Ish. I struggle with that. Yes and no.
You feel like you're a fraud of a drug addict
I'm just a fraud
of a
life.
Manhattan.
I don't know who the fuck I am, right? Like I'm no one thing. That's kind of part of the problem. My parents split up when I was 2. They lived on 81st in Amsterdam. My father moved to 80th in Amsterdam. My mother moved to the 79th Street Boat Basin. And we lived there until we moved to Old Tappan when she got married and had my sister.
Is it Tappan?
It is.
I always thought it was pronounced Tappan.
Maybe it is. I've always said Tappan.
But it's the Tappan Zee Bridge. Why would it be Tappan?
Yeah.
How do you not know if you live there?
I lived there for a year.
Okay, then
I
think you're
6.
right.
Yeah. I
Dopey
don't know.
Nation, do you know how it's pronounced?
Let us know.
Please send in an email to dopeypodcast@gmail.com.
So yeah. So then, but I spent, every other weekend with my dad in the city. And then I moved back here when I was 16.
So where did you live between 1 and 16?
1 and 16.
Where did your mom live?
So 1 to 5, I was in New York City. And then one year we were in Tappan. 1 year we were then we went to...
See, Tappan is spelled with 2 P's.
Tappan, whatever.
Well, Japan is spelled with 1 P and it's Japan. So it would be Tappan.
Tappan.
Tappan would
the
be
Tappan Zee Bridge. You're right. So maybe it is.
I've
always said Tappan.
I would love to know.
I don't know. We'll have to find out.
I apologize.
I'm sorry. I'm going to continue to say it wrong because that's just how I've always said it.
I said your name wrong 4 times in the opening.
So you can forgive
say
me.
Tappan if you
okay.
want.
Thank you.
Yes.
So we were in River Edge, New Jersey for a bit. That house burnt down. So then we were in Hawthorne for a year.
New York or New Jersey?
New Jersey. And then we were in... I think that's it. Then we moved to Paramus when I was in 7th grade. So I think there was one other town, but I don't remember what it was. But that was the bouncing around. Then in 7th grade, we moved to Paramus, New Jersey, and that's where I graduated high school.
How much did your New York City life inform your Paramus life? Where you're like, I have this other life in New York, blah, blah, blah.
It was weird. It felt like 2 different lives. It definitely did. My parents really didn't they were polar opposites, and in some ways the same, in the way that polar opposites can be the same, right? Like 2 ends of the same spectrum. So my mom was super, super religious. Think of like Christian Science, but like not true Christian Science. That's my mom. So she doesn't believe in Western medicine.
Really, still?
Yeah.
Wow.
I never went to a doctor. I wasn't allowed to get braces. I never went to a dentist. I was never immunized, all that kind of stuff. So super, super strict, super Christian, super kind of different, we'll say.
That's nice.
I'm trying to be nice.
That's nice.
And my dad was very progressive. Education was the most important thing to him. I was
How did they wind up together?
They were both actors.
Mm.
Yeah. So my mother came here from Rome when she was 26. And my dad spoke fluent Italian. Long story short, he had gone to Italy to try and make it there as an actor. He met a woman on the plane. That woman was my mom's best friend. He gave her his number. And when my mom moved to New York to try and make it here as an actress, her best friend said, call this guy. He's, attractive. He speaks Italian. He's an actor in New York. And that's how they met.
And the rest is history.
Yeah.
And then
exactly.
here we are.
And then here I am. Yeah.
So did you start doing drugs in Paramus or here?
Well, in Paramus, I'm a control freak. So I started drinking in 7th grade, but I really didn't like the feeling of being drunk because I felt too out of control. I had too much fear of what was going to happen. So I started sneaking out of my house in 7th grade to go to parties and to drink, but I didn't really get that drunk. Like I just wanted to be there, but I didn't really like the feeling. So my mom also wouldn't let me go to college. That was like the big turning point. And so that's when I moved back in with my dad my junior year, because to me, the idea of not going to college wasn't an option. So I really wanted to go to college in California. So the summer after my junior year, my dad sent me out to Cali. He's got a ton of friends in California, right? So I bounced up and down the coast, staying with his friends, going to visit colleges. I don't know where he was, but he wasn't there. So I met a guy, and that was the first time I ever smoked weed. He had like a vaporizer in his truck. It was so cool. And I got pretty stoned.
Was it like a vaporizer with like...
You know the old ones that was like a box and it had like a long tube?
Yeah.
It was one of those. It was like built into his dash. It was very cool.
He was like a dazed and confused kind of guy?
He was a college basketball player, and he had a motorcycle. He just won me over real quick.
Right.
So I started smoking weed, lost my virginity. It was a big
strong
night.
upper body.
Yeah. Exactly.
No,
Tall,
no prison.
height, and good upper body.
Right.
That's really what I'm looking for. And so that I never talked to him or saw him again, but that was the first time I ever smoked pot.
So you vaped weed out of an old vaporizer and had sex with him in his customizable sex vape van?
Yes,
and that
correct.
was it.
And that was it. We
All
got
right.
Taco Bell after.
Right.
And he brought me back to my
nice.
uncle's house.
Never to be seen again.
Never to be seen again.
Now he's like on the Lakers.
I don't know. His name was Mike. I don't know his last name. I don't know.
Mike, if you're listening, please send in an email.
Let us know how you're doing.
Yeah, we want to know.
We want to know what
Yes.
happened. So that was the first time I smoked weed. And then I came back to the East Coast and I smoked weed every day. That was
it.
the first thing like I loved. I was like, this is it. This
High
is
school.
the answer. Yeah. Junior year though, I was a late bloomer.
Me too.
I was really good. My mom was really strict, which helped, you know. Drinking was the worst of it until smoking weed was whatever also. At that time, you know, it was like a fun thing to do. So then I started smoking a lot of weed, and my senior year, I started doing a little coke here and there. Nothing crazy. And then I started dating a guy that was older than me, as one does. He was 22 and thought he was very cool. I was 17. And he had done a lot of drugs. So he, you know, gave me acid for the first time, did a lot of coke with him, a lot of drinking. But that was pretty much it. Pills, but like I didn't know what they were. I just took them.
How would you classify your 17-year-old you? Like, what was your style?
17-year-old me was like trying to walk this line between being the party girl that I wanted to be, coping with what was, not to take it dark, but a very traumatic time. You know, like I moved out of my mom's. I put all my shit in garbage bags. I left when she wasn't home because I couldn't bear to say goodbye.
Why did you leave?
Because she wasn't going to let me go to school, to college, and I had to live with my dad for 6 months before I sent out my applications to establish residency with him.
Right.
And she and I had been going back and forth, and I would cry and plead, and, you know, it just wasn't happening.
What did she want you to do?
Work.
And she hadn't gone to college to be an actor.
She didn't finish high school.
But she was like, I want to be an actor.
Yeah.
What did she wind up doing for work?
It's a mix of things. So she quit acting when she had me. She did really well for herself in Italy. She was a good, well-known actress in Italy. It didn't translate as quickly, I think, when she got here. I think she got admitted to the actor's studio, and then she got pregnant with me. So she quit. She didn't work for, I think I was like 7 maybe or 8 when she went back to. I have a lot of gaps in my childhood. There was also like traumatic divorce stuff in there, stuff with them that just I don't remember much. But she worked odd job, like she worked at a Dunkin' Donuts. She worked at a.
It's just hard to make sense. I mean, like I don't understand Christian Science, I guess,
Yeah.
or like whatever that dogma is, but like you don't have any choices if you don't have
Right.
an education.
That's what I used to say. I'd be like, Mom, I can't even work at Hooters. I'm flat. Like I can't. You're leaving me no options. You know.
And
She was like, you're full of shit.
Jesus
like, you can
Jesus will show you the way.
God will tell you what you're meant to do with your life when you're 21.
It's funny because that's actually kind of what wound up happening, which is
Yeah.
very, very, very annoying.
Yeah, it's very annoying.
Anyway, so you wind up, where'd you go to school? Oh,
for
Binghamton.
college. I went to Binghamton for a semester. So I got into the school I wanted to in California. My dad came back.
Which school?
Santa Clara.
Nice.
My dad came back like a couple months before I was supposed to go and was like, listen, I can't afford it. You've got to apply to state school, which I hadn't applied to any New York State schools. I had only applied to California.
You just wanted to leave
pretty much.
desperately.
I really wanted to be in California. I thought that I would be happy in California.
Maybe you would have been. Did
probably.
you live there?
No, I've never actually lived there.
I lived there. It was horrible.
Was it?
It was horrible.
I don't think Southern California I would like to live, but I don't know. Well, you never know.
It was horrible for me, but I was using. Doesn't matter. Maybe it would have been great for you. Santa Clara is like the real home of the Lost Boys, right?
What's the Lost Boys?
See, I'm too
Do
old.
I not know anything?
No, I'm just old.
Are
the
you?
Lost Boys is a really famous 80s vampire movie.
Oh, no. It's not you. It's definitely me.
No, it's an old movie. I just take for granted that everyone isn't 50.
Well, I don't watch movies.
I feel very young.
You are young.
I sit with young people and I'm like, aren't we all young together? That's what happens to me.
I'm learning about all this lingo. So the youngest person on my team is 22. And so I always like run things by her before I say them to make sure I'm saying them right.
It's really good for me.
Oh gosh, that you're putting me on the spot. What was the one that I learned most recently? Oh, Giat. So my daughter's got a donk, right? So she's 2.
The donk being her butt?
Her butt.
Okay.
Yeah. So I said, she's got such a fat ass. And my husband was like, nobody says that anymore.
How old is your husband?
40.
Okay.
Yeah. He's not young at all, but apparently he's got a teenage girlfriend or something because he knows all these fucking words.
Right.
So he's like, they don't say that anymore. They say she's thick. And I was like, okay.
I knew that.
So I tried that out. But
Yeah.
I thought thick was more than just the ass. Like thick is more about
That's a real New Jersey pronunciation
the
of
whole
ass.
What did I say?
Ass. That's a real New Jersey.
Every
ass.
once in a while a word will come out.
That's good.
But it's a giat. That's what it's called.
A large butt.
It's called a giat.
Yeah, I think my daughter protects me from those words.
How old is she?
She's 14.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I'm sure she knows them.
Of course she does.
She says the things that she says is skivvity toilet. Do you know what that is?
No.
It's like
Tell me.
I think it's like something that's not good is skivvity toilet.
Like trash.
I don't think
way
it's that.
I would
I don't
say,
think
like-
it's that simple. And I think I'm dating myself that I don't pay enough attention to her to know what she's talking about when she says skivvity toilet.
Right. Just translate, please. Tell me in English.
She says it all the time though. She also talks about people yapping. Like
Is that talking?
If they're talking a lot, they're yapping.
Yeah.
But okay, so where were we? I don't want to get diverted.
I wanted to ask you a question about your daughter, but I forgot it already. Is she like well behaved? She's good?
She's good. She's really good.
That's good.
She went to Fire Island today
Oh, fun.
with her friends on a boat.
By themselves?
Yeah.
Who's driving the boat?
Ferry.
Oh.
So they
okay.
took
I thought you meant like
their teenage their
14-year-old.
teenage boyfriend.
Yeah, I was like, Jesus.
Luke. No, they fucking went on a ferry.
Cool.
And like, but there's no lifeguards, right?
Yeah.
And my daughter's a good swimmer, but my wife. Normally, it doesn't feel like my wife thinks I can do anything good in
Right.
the parenting. I mean, I'm a good parent, but she doesn't turn to me.
Right.
for
Like, what should
help.
we do? Yeah.
No, she wrote me, Nora's going swimming Fire Island. There's no lifeguards and there's a big rip current warning. Can you tell her to be careful?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah,
She
of course.
trusted you to give that
Yeah,
message.
of course I can do that.
Aw.
And so I called her and she said she's not even going to go in the water.
Oh, good.
But it's interesting that she trusted me.
Yeah.
All right. So you have
Okay.
California dreams.
So I want to go to California. It doesn't pan out financially. So at this point, at some point, I forgot to mention. So I moved back to my dad's apartment in the city. He gets this job touring with Jersey Boys. So he's out in San Francisco for the first leg of the national tour of Jersey Boys. I'm in his apartment by myself. I've got this older boyfriend. We're doing
Drugs.
all kinds of things. And he calls and says, I can't afford for you to go to California. You got to apply to state school. So I was a little crushed. But I applied. I got into Binghamton, whatever. But they couldn't take me till the spring semester. So now I had, another 3-4 months or whatever to continue to develop my skills. And I was getting fucked up, but I always worked from 14. I worked at a, actually Maywood Marketplace, which is in Bergen County, New Jersey. West Side Market. You know West Side Market?
Yes.
Do you?
I think so. It's on the Upper West Side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They own a location in New Jersey.
Okay.
So I bagged groceries there at 14. I always had a job. So at this point, I'm working as a hostess at Fleming's at a steakhouse. I'm working I had interned for this financial advisor. I'm working for him. I'm working. And so I have this 3 months, but I'm also partying. And the first time I took ecstasy, so I had taken a week off work the week before I was supposed to leave for school, and thinking that I had all this shit to do. Like I had to pack, I had to shop, I had like a ton of shit to do. But I did it all in 2 days. So then I was like, I hadn't been alone because my boyfriend was working at all in, I don't even know, like a very long time. And I was by myself in this apartment, and I was laying on the floor. I could not get off the floor. I was so depressed. And I had a party, and I like looked, and my dad had a studio apartment. It was really small, but there was like a piano on one side of the apartment. And on the piano were these triple stack ecstasy pills. And I'd never taken ecstasy before.
Whose were they?
I don't know. Somebody left them there. Maybe they were my boyfriend's. I don't fucking know where they came from. But there they were. It was like, from heaven. I was like, oh, ecstasy is supposed to make you happy. So unpopular opinion about ecstasy, I think to some degree it just exacerbates what you're feeling, unless you're in an environment that's going to change it. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But I took both by myself. And I was so fucked up. I don't know what happened. All I know is my boyfriend came home. I was in my prom dress. I had drank half a bottle of vodka. I had a full face of makeup on, and the dog was licking vomit off of my face.
Wow.
And I was more depressed. And he came home, and I was like, you got to make it stop. Like, I can't feel like this anymore. Like, can we smoke some weed? And he was so mad at me for taking them. He like didn't even want to look at me. So he didn't really help me out. But that's the first time I ever took ecstasy. And then I was supposed to go to Binghamton, and he was supposed to drive me. And that morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, he broke up with me and said that he didn't trust the other guys at school. And he, oh, by the way, forgot to take the day off. So he couldn't drive me to school.
Well, he didn't trust them as to what?
Like, because I was like, is it because you don't trust me? Like, what do you...
So he didn't trust the other guys in Binghamton to not have sex with you?
Correct. Yeah. Allegedly. I think he was saving money while living in my dad's apartment rent-free, because he had another apartment like seconds after I went to school with this girl that we also worked with at the restaurant.
And that apartment was like legendary party apartment though, right?
Yes. It was a beautiful, wonderful spot to have a party. It had, this 10,000 square foot roof space that was private to our apartment. Nobody else could get into it.
I think you described it to me as a shack on top of a building.
Yeah, it was the Pent Shack.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So he dumps you.
So he dumps me.
You go to Binghamton.
I go to Binghamton ready to fucking go, right? Like I need to heal this broken heart. And at that point, I've learned that the best way to do that is to have more sex and do more drugs, right? Like that's what makes me feel better.
It's not such a crazy notion.
I mean, it works.
Yes.
It's very effective.
It works in the short term.
Yes.
All that stuff was really good for short term.
Right.
If life ended as soon as you were high or were it just fucking or came or whatever,
right.
that would be a great
place to go.
Perfect solution.
Yeah.
The problem is that the stuff that happens afterwards.
Right. The fallout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get to Binghamton a young freshman, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed.
Yeah, I'm 17. I'm 18 at that point.
And you're ready to like go bananas.
Yeah.
And you do.
Yes.
So what does it look like?
Well, my first week, this guy started talking to me in like the dining area. My first fucking day, actually, I met this girl and we both smoked cigarettes, and my dad's friend ended up driving me up. And so he wouldn't stop to help me, like, so I could buy a carton of cigarettes. So she and I are talking and she's like, I don't have any smokes. I didn't have any smokes. So we're like, fuck orientation. We'll skip it and we'll go. For some reason, we thought that the student union would sell cigarettes.
I was going to say they probably did.
No, they fucking didn't.
Okay.
So we went there trying to get a pack of cigarettes and they were like, no, we don't sell cigarettes. Like we were insane. And they were like, there's a gas station like 10 minutes down the road if you want. But they meant driving. So we start walking down this fucking like small state, county, whatever fucking highway in Binghamton
17-year-olds.
to find this gas station to buy cigarettes.
Instead of go to orientation at the Harvard of SUNY schools.
Correct. So we got our cigarettes. We got like 3 cartons each or whatever. Walked them back. It was a very long walk. And that's how it started, you know? So I wasn't off to like a rip-roaring start academically. And then I met this guy and he was like, do you want to smoke a blunt? And like my answer was always, yes, I do. What's your name? Yes, I'll be there. And he was like the pledge master of some frat off campus. And so I went to his apartment to smoke. I woke up 3 days later and I was his girlfriend. And that was that, you know, like I didn't really leave.
I think that's how me and my wife got together too.
Just woke up like, I guess we're a thing now.
That's what I told her at least.
Yeah.
So are you starting to be like, I am this drug person?
So that was my identity, was I was a party girl, right? Like that's what I wanted to be. I didn't think it was a problem per se until I'm doing all this coke. At one point, like I met these guys from Syracuse. So I went to Syracuse to get an ounce of coke for my boyfriend. And they wouldn't let me leave this house for 3 days because this one guy like wanted to have sex with me, but he was on steroids and his dick couldn't get hard. So it was like 3 days of him trying to have sex with me. So you were willing
to have sex with him, but he wouldn't deliver the goods.
I wasn't. So like my thing with rape was always like, I'm not going to fight it. Like I don't particularly want to, but like, let's just get this over with. I think I once told a guy in St. Thomas, make it quick. That was kind of like my thing. Like I never put up a fight. I just... Even if I didn't want to, I would do it. So I've always struggled with therapists telling me it's rape. I don't fucking know. It's like rapey, you know? Like it's definitely rape-esque.
Like on the border of consent or no consent.
Yeah, it's like, did I actually say no? Probably not. Maybe with my body language, maybe with, like I was like, trying to like skirt away. But anyway, that part doesn't fucking matter. But like, so things were getting dark, like I think... toward the end of the semester, I realized, fuck, I haven't been to class at all. Like, I have no idea what the fuck is going. I don't even know what classes I'm supposed to be in. I need to figure this out. My dad's going to fucking kill me. So I went to the registrar's office. I withdrew from all my classes. I called my mother, who at that point, so when I moved out at 16, on my 17th birthday, she called me to the house. I went to the house. She gave me an iPod Shuffle, and she told me that she was moving to St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands.
Wow.
Because she couldn't bear to be in the house without me. So she moved to St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands. So at that point...
Does she still live there?
No.
Okay.
She was... we'll get there. So So I called her because she was really strict and really religious. And I was like, Mom, like I think I have like a drug problem and I need you to be strict with me so that I can get my shit back together, right? So she bought me a plane ticket to St. Thomas. I sent my dad an email and I was like, hey, sorry, wish I had better news. Like I dropped out of school and I'm moving back in with Mom.
Turns out I'm a drug addict moving to St. Thomas.
Yeah, exactly. So
and this is where you meet this next rapey guy too.
Yeah, that is the rapey guy. Yeah, the make it quick guy. Yeah, exactly. To which when I told my mother what had occurred, she said, well, what the fuck did you expect being out in a short skirt with the locals? Kind of fair to a certain extent. Well, you're not supposed to say that, but
it's not a supportive mothering kind
no,
of
it wasn't like the most maternal thing I've ever heard. Like I was looking for like a hug and I'm sorry, but that's not what I got.
That's horrible. No, it's horrible, but it's like where are you at? You moved to St. Thomas to like get help. Basically, you need help. Your mother could be a good candidate
potentially
to help you.
Yeah, maybe.
And
in retrospect, definitely not, but at the time.
So you get there and like, does she put the clamps on or are you just like off and running?
No. I'm managing. So I get a job bartending at a resort. I'm working breakfast and lunch because I thought that I should be up during the day and asleep at night.
It's a good thought.
So I stopped doing cocaine. I start drinking at 6 a.m. when I start making the fresh squeezed orange juice for the day. And I just drink screwdrivers all fucking day. After work, I go to the Ritz, which is the resort next door to the bar, and hang out. And I go home in time for dinner. I sit down at dinner with my mom and my siblings, and it's all very normal. My mom's growing weed at the time, so she taught me how to roll a joint. At that point, we were smoking together, and things seemed manageable,
And she missed the part where you said you were having a problem with drugs and you need help.
So my mom to this day wishes I would just drink normally.
Right.
She doesn't believe in treatment, therapy, medication, any of it. So she thinks that my sobriety is extreme, and that if I was really healed, I would just be able to drink normally.
And yet you shouldn't go to college or take medicine.
Right.
Or that's not extreme. So she's saying...
Is it working?
Yes.
Okay.
She was saying all of her very extremist philosophies are not extreme, but abstinence is very extreme.
Is too extreme. Yeah.
I hear that. I mean, I think... No, I mean, I don't think... I just think abstinence is really extreme.
It is.
It's crazy what we do.
It's insane.
It's crazy.
I think there must have been an error in the accounting all the time. How is this possible?
I don't mean for you or for me. I mean for all of us. How can this be the only solution?
Right. Yeah, there's got to be something else.
None of us can handle putting anything into us. How can that be real?
I don't know.
And then we're all these weirdos in these different cults, offshoots of these different cults, because we can't handle putting a mood or mind altering substance into our body.
Which is wild. I literally remember saying to people what are you afraid of? You don't think you're stronger than this powder? The girl with the cigarettes at college was so scared to do coke. And I convinced her to. And she got worse than me. I don't know what happened to her. No idea. She was from Newburgh, which...
You don't have to tell me about Newburgh.
I was like, whoa. I went to visit with her, and I was like, oh my word, this is where you're from?
I wonder what happened to her.
I don't know.
So your mom grows weed?
Yeah, she was growing weed in St. Thomas.
Your mom is a character.
I
don't really understand your mom.
Nobody does.
So
I don't understand
You're rolling
her.
joints for your mom. You're drinking alcoholically.
All day. Yeah. Which didn't seem like a problem. Truly, my idea was I'm going to bed early, I'm waking up early, I'm working. There is no problem here.
So,
you know what I mean?
So how does it all play out? St. Thomas.
So there's the Rapy incident.
How significant was it?
It shook me up. It shook me up for sure.
Because is it a rapey incident or is it rape? I mean, it's whenever I talk to women, I mean, I don't think I've talked to many men, a couple of men who've been sexually abused or talked about their sexual trauma. I never know how to talk about it.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable.
Is it too much? Is it too little? How did it change you?
I don't fucking know.
All right, it's a stupid question.
I don't know, Dave.
I don't know why. I don't.
It's not a stupid question. I wish I had clarity.
What's the right
on
way
that.
to talk about it?
I think that with most things, my approach is to make a joke. That's
my approach.
That's my approach to all things. It's only recently, since I had my second kid, I've been getting really emotional, and I don't know how to handle that. Looking back at me, maybe because I had a daughter, maybe because things are calm for the first time in a really long time because my dad was sick for so long, whatever. I've been getting oh yeah, it was rape, but I don't like to say that because I don't. And this is where I don't know if it's a cultural thing, if it's victim blaming on myself because it's too hard. If I was to say I was raped, that feels painful. So I'd rather just say
it was rapey. Yeah,
it was rapey. But I also take some responsibility. My mom wasn't wrong, that's where I also struggle is none of my rapes were...
How many rapes?
Sounds fucking terrible. I mean, technically... So there was one that was really bad. That was later. That was when I was going to Hunter and I was back in New York. That comes a couple of years later. That one was really bad. And then there was the one in St. Thomas. There was the Syracuse guy, which was another borderline guy. And then there was one when I was in high school that was probably the most traumatic because it was it wasn't, and also the hardest one to swallow. It was one of my first ever high school boyfriend who I did not have sex with. Like, it was not, I was like 14, 15. I was a prude. I was a good kid. And it was his best friend at this party. And he didn't like vaginally rape me, right? He like forced me to give him head, which I had never done before in this cul-de-sac. And then he told everyone I was lying. So that was hard going back to high school. And the guy broke up with me, and it was like a whole fucking thing. So that was like
his friend.
That was his best friend. He was like captain of football. It was like it was like a teen fucking drama, right?
Yeah.
It was a thing. Sorry.
It's okay.
So, there's like a handful in there, for sure. I swear, I would get annoyed when clinicians would try to talk to me about that stuff and say I had a lot of trauma.
That's what I was about to say.
Because I did not feel it until very recently. I've gotten so raw lately. Something, I don't know. Something has changed with me, which I think is a good thing.
I think life is so like weird. And I mean, it's really like getting through it, so you don't even know what happened half the time or how you got from A to B. You're just glad you got there.
Right.
And then somehow in the B zone, you're like, wait a second.
Yeah. What the fuck happened?
What happened there? And like, I don't know if it's better to have been the victim of something, because I'm sure you did fucked up shit too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So we look back on all these things and we're like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
This happened to me. Oh fuck. I did this to this person, and it's like,
yeah.
Ugh,
Yeah. Do they balance each other out?
Well, no, none of it.
No, I know.
None of it makes any sense.
No.
But it's like, I personally believe, like, I remember I was at Mountainside and I wasn't convinced that, I was 35. I was doing $300 of heroin a day. I had a baby. My daughter was a baby. I was separated from her mother. I wasn't with them. I wasn't going to be with them.
Right.
And I was like, it's not, that's,
I'm only hurting myself.
Yeah, I wasn't really understanding of that was a real turning point in my, like, development as a drug addict or moving towards being a person in recovery. And the lady was like, you're going to die.
Yeah.
She's like, you're in end stage drug addiction. You're going to die. And it wasn't the questions like, oh, how did this happen to you? It was like, what the fuck are you going to do?
Right.
Right. So it's like when somebody asks you, like, or tells you that, these things are why you are the way you are. It's a soup. It's a lot of different things.
It was a lot of things. It was definitely a lot of things.
I blame your mother. I'm going to go right to your mother. And I'm sure we could blame your father too. But I really enjoy him on The Sopranos.
We could blame a lot of people. I think to some degree it's genetic, and to some degree it's environmental, right? Like, and my upbringing, she was basically in a cult, and there was a lot of rigidity.
In weird places.
In very weird places that caused me to feel like, when I say it's probably not you with the movie thing, like I wasn't allowed to watch most things. Like that was half of my resentment against The Sopranos was that all of my friends at school had seen it and I hadn't. So I had to pretend like I didn't fucking give a fuck,
Right.
Excuse my French. That was too many fucks in one sentence.
You can say fucking everything.
that was a lot of fucks. So, we hear in the rooms nonstop, right? Like I felt separate and different. And I did. I felt separate and different. And I was looking for something. Look, when I became a pothead, I found people that, like, it didn't matter what their parents were like, how much money they had, what they were good at. We all smoked weed. That's what we had in common. That's all we needed to have in common. Like I didn't trust people that didn't smoke weed. I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
I didn't want to hang out with people that didn't smoke weed.
No, me neither.
But it was a shortcut to relating to each other. It was a shortcut of something to do.
Yeah.
It was a way to listen to music. It was a way to eat. It was a way to play video games. It was a
good way to drive.
Wow. I'm still not the greatest driver. And in my smoking heyday, I didn't really drive at all.
Much. Yeah.
But But I was a great passenger. I was a super stoner passenger. And the driver was always high too. They were built to drive stoned. And I was not. I'm barely built to drive sober though. So, I hear you. Like the culture is thick. So what happened? How did you bottom out of St. Thomas?
So no, we didn't. So my mom moved. We moved us all. So my brother and sister at this time they're 10 and 6 years younger than me. So if I was 18,
different dad.
Yeah, my stepfather. So
how is he?
He's sweet. He's wonderful. He's a really nice guy. He's very mild though. Like I think the only way a relationship works with my mother is you have to be completely submissive.
Right.
You know, like you can't push back against her. It doesn't end well. I do believe that my mom has a good amount of mental illness caused by her own fucking shit, right? Like she didn't grow up in a vacuum just fucked up, right? There were things that happened to her that made her the way she is, and that's just how life goes,
yeah.
You know? So my brother and sister were like 8 and 12 at the time in public school in St. Thomas, which the public school system in a U.S. territory that's not getting a lot of funding are not great. And so my mom had made the decision that we were all going to move to Florida. So they got a house in Florida. We all packed up and we went to Tampa, Florida, the armpit of America, in my opinion.
Right. I saw a video yesterday of a guy in Florida in a blackout carrying an alligator into a convenience store. He's holding an alligator, goes into the beer fridge, grabs like a 6-pack of beer. I don't know if he steals it or he buys it
with the alligator
under his arm. And then afterwards, he said he didn't know where he had gotten the alligator. That's Florida.
That's super impressive.
Yeah, I'll show you the video.
I'm very impressed by this man.
Yeah, well, it was a big alligator too. It wasn't a little.
Was it like flailing?
No, it was just happy.
It was calm.
It was happy to be there.
It was like, just give me a beer, bro.
Yeah, it was happy to be there. So you're in Tampa for how long?
So I'm in Tampa for, I don't know, maybe 9 months. In Tampa, I saw a trailer park for the first time. There just aren't those in like northern New Jersey or New York City, so I'd never been in one. We lived in this gated community on one side of Hillsborough Avenue, and on the other side of Hillsborough Avenue was this trailer park. And so naturally, like I got there and I needed to smoke weed. So the moving company, like the guys that were moving us into the house, I asked them where I could get some bud. So they gave me my first bag of dope and introduced me to somebody, and that was it. So I met these people in this trailer park.
Wait, they gave you heroin or they gave you weed?
No, weed. I wasn't doing any other than the coke and like occasional ecstasy and Xanax and Adderall. I wasn't really doing.
You were doing every drug except heroin.
I wasn't doing like a lot of drugs,
right,
Dave.
Right.
I was like very well functioning young adult, and so that's when I started doing opiates for the first time.
Was in
Tampa.
How did it happen?
I couldn't even tell you. Like I made these friends. They were like, "Try this. It's nice,"
and
I was like,
okay.
"Sick."
Right.
Yeah, it's $4. They were so cheap.
Right.
We were going to this doctor. We were driving 2 hours to get this to get a script for like, I don't know, $100, and then making tons of money. Just this guy that I was dating at that point, obviously, or whatever. He was my dealer and my boyfriend.
And your lover.
Yeah, exactly. Like most of my lovers at that point.
Right. They provided me with sex and drugs.
Yeah, it's a twofer. Buy one, get one. And so I started doing a lot. I didn't know what they were. I didn't fucking ask. I didn't know what happened when you didn't take them. I never had to find out. And I was getting progressively, I was also doing a lot more Xanax. So I was blacking out. So my mom was catching on. Because like one morning, so I used to snort like 4 Xanny bars. Just for no fucking reason other than to snort 4 Xanny bars, and I would completely black out. So one morning I
think it's urban legend that you can't smoke or can't snort Xanax.
You can snort Xanax. Why the fuck wouldn't you be able to snort Xanax? I pretty much exclusively snorted Xanax.
What can't you do with Xanax? You not shoot it? I think there's something
maybe
you can't
it's not
do.
water soluble. I don't know. I wasn't a big into needles.
There's something you can't do with Xanax.
It might be shooting it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I came downstairs. My mom was making breakfast. I was like, "Oh, it smells good, Ma." She slapped me across the face. And I was like, what the fuck was that for? And she was like, where did you go last night? And I genuinely did not remember. I was like, I didn't leave the house last night. Like dead serious, you know? Like she was
like, well, then why are you in this convenience
like,
store with an alligator?
Why is your car in the front yard completely, like the whole side of the car was dented? I had just parked it in the front yard and gone inside. I have no idea what I hit.
Right.
I have no idea what happened that night. Because the other cool thing about Florida are the drive-through liquor stores. Those seem very irresponsible in retrospect.
Well, the whole thing is like doctors and liquor stores, and the doctors aren't for getting like real sickness; it's for getting high.
Yeah,
I think the whole phenomena of going to the doctor to get high is a Florida. It's like real deeply
that's where
Floridian.
It was incepted. Yeah. So that was Florida. Eventually, my mom caught me in my room with a bunch of drugs, like an 8-ball of coke and a guy from some trailer park, and she was like, "You have to go." And so she bought me a plane ticket back to New York, and she gave me $100 and a carton of cigarettes, and she dropped me off at the airport. She said, "Good luck."
Does she smoke cigarettes?
Yeah, a lot of them.
Yeah.
That was my first hustle. I used to steal. So she would get cartons of Camel Lights, and they were in this drawer in the dining room. And I would steal them, and I'd sell them to the older kids for $5 a pack because they were older, but they weren't old enough to buy them yet.
Right.
That was my first little side hustle.
And you had all these free cigarettes.
I literally taught myself to smoke cigarettes. I sat in my bedroom window and practiced back to back until I could do it without coughing so I could make my big debut.
It's fucked up. It's like all this talk about smoking really makes me want to have a cigarette.
Does it?
Always.
I don't enjoy, every once in a while, like when I'm around my mom, I'll just have to take a drag, and I'll take a drag and it tastes so bad to me.
I haven't had a cigarette in a long time.
Congrats. And you don't vape or use
No.
dip or anything?
Nothing.
You just raw dogging it.
I do nothing.
That's wild.
But I mean, I did vape a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I don't love vaping. I liked smoking, and I think if I smoked now, I wouldn't like it. But
Yeah.
when I talk about it, I want to smoke. I really loved it.
There's something wonderful about it.
I loved it, like the idea of, like I remember when I was a kid and I was a young smoker. I wasn't a kid. I was in my 20s or whatever, early 20s. And I would be like talking to somebody smoking a cigarette like someplace, and I'd be like, "Oh, I could do this all day." And I would hope that I would do that all day. And like that's why I don't smoke. You know what I mean? Because I would smoke all day.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a horrible drug addict. I don't do anything because I'm abstinent exactly I'm extremely like I'm a weirdo.
All
now.
or nothing.
It's like it's interesting though.
I don't know how I'm ever going to quit the vape.
So she sends you away.
So she sends me away. Yeah, she's done with me. So I'm 19, maybe. Did I turn 19? I may have turned 19 that September. So it's like spring. Then she sends me back to New York. My dad's still on tour. So I get back to New York. I call the only person whose number I have memorized because my mom took my cell phone. So she sent me back with
Why
the
did she
phone.
take your phone? Because she
I don't
knew.
fucking know.
That's weird.
Yeah, she did a lot of things. Just put me on a plane with no phone.
Yeah.
Whatever. So I called from a phone in the airport. The 22-year-old.
You told a story about yelling that you should be sent to the good rehab because you didn't go to college, but you don't remember how your mom managed to put you on a plane without your phone without saying anything.
No, I was more fucked up then.
Right.
I was sober when I was yelling about, like, that was me with my best thinking.
So when you flew home, you had a shit ton of pills.
No, I didn't have anything. I brought nothing with me.
Right.
I had no idea that withdrawal was a thing. And even though, so I came back, I called that boyfriend that I had when I was 17 that lived with me, that broke up with me the day I went to college because I knew his number by heart. And he set me up to stay with his best friend and his girlfriend. They came and picked me up from Newark, and I stayed with them for like a week. And I was so sick, and I couldn't figure out why I was so sick, but I didn't think it had anything to do with the drugs. I thought it was just I had gotten sick.
What kind of opiates were you doing?
You know, I don't know.
Okay.
They were pills.
Right.
They were, I don't even remember the color, to be honest.
Okay.
I was doing a lot of them.
Yes.
I can tell you that much.
And you had to withdraw from them.
Yeah,
which
I
is
did,
the point.
for
Yes.
sure. And so I started doing a lot of coke to try and combat the sickness because, you know, science. And I went into the city. I got myself a job. I got hired at this boutique on the Upper West Side selling handbags.
Nice.
And I called my dad and I said, listen, like I'm in New York. I've got a job. Can I please go live in your apartment? You know, are you subletting? What are you doing right now with the apartment? Can I go in? And he was like, you can live at the apartment if you take one class at Hunter. And I was like, okay,
oh
deal.
Boy, this is where we get to this next horrible story.
Yeah, we can skip over that one. It was just like basically this guy that I thought we were just going to smoke some weed. And I brought him back to my apartment to smoke weed. And he was like, did you really think I just came here to smoke weed? And like, I was like, yes, like that's exactly what I thought. What do you mean? And he like wouldn't leave. And it was really terrible. That was the only one that was like really terrible. I mean, not that any.
Did he really
like
say
pleasant.
that?
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Yeah. So I moved back into the apartment. Luckily, so funnily enough, this is random, but I went to the Brownstone School, which is like a preschool on 80th Street between Amsterdam and Columbus. That's where I went to preschool. And my best friend was this girl, Daphne. And Daphne's mom was also from Rome. So our moms got along really well. She lived on 77th Street. And we were best friends. So I'm at a party, like the first week I'm at Binghamton. And this girl goes, Allegra? And I turn her, and I had not seen her since I was probably 5, maybe 6. And she looked familiar, but I couldn't remember her name. And I was like, oh my God, hi. And she was like, you're Allegra, you went to the Brownstone School, right? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, your mom's Italian too. I can't remember your name though. And she said, Daphne. And so, but she wasn't like fucked up. She's not a drug addict. She's like a very normal, she like got a good job. She moved out to California, whatever. But when I got back to New York, I had Daphne. So Daphne came over, introduced me to all her friends. I like instantly had a friend group. I also had this girl, Caitlin, that I had skated. I figure skated growing up at Wallman and Chelsea Pier. So from the New York skating club, I had a couple friends. I wasn't great. No, I was like okay, I would say. But if I wanted to be good, I would have had to like practice and stuff. And that wasn't really my jam with anything.
Yeah.
So natural ability would get me as far as it would get me. And then I'd be like, all right, what's next?
Right.
So anyway, I, pretty instantly had a friend group, and I had this apartment with no oversight, and it was the spot. Like I left the door unlocked. People would just come through and smoke me up. Like it was wonderful. Daphne had gone to Beacon. So like everybody that graduated from Beacon in her year basically would come smoke at my house. It was wild.
It's like Kids.
What?
I imagine it to be like the movie Kids.
Yeah, it felt that way. It was one of my favorite movies.
But you were older than them.
I was.
But you were still young enough that
Yeah.
it could be very kids-like.
Yeah, for sure. So at that point, so I didn't.
You're like, I know that movie.
Yeah, I know one.
You're like,
Look at that.
This is great.
Yeah, that and Requiem for a Dream,
Yeah,
where like,
right.
how could I not?
Right.
That was my goal, right?
Right.
Like, which is so fucked up. I saw those things and I thought, I want to be that. Not like, wow, that's fucked up.
No, I had a similar reaction to movies with drugs in them. Like
I glamorized
yeah.
them so much.
Yeah.
So I wasn't doing opiates. I was just drinking, doing coke. I went out like every night. Normal stuff, I would say, ish, for like early 20s, going to Hunter. I was doing okay for a while. But like anything else, like every other time, like I started doing more and more. I was doing a lot of Special K. I was like taking a bunch of Molly. I was doing a lot of Xanax. I just started doing drugs again. Like that's just what I did. I never really stopped. I just stopped the opiates because I didn't know what they were called and I didn't know where to get them.
Did you know that it was withdrawal?
No, I still
Okay.
at this point did
Right.
not know that's what it was. So I got my wisdom teeth out and I got Percocet and I was like, this is it.
Right.
This is the thing.
Right.
And funnily enough, at that same time, the guy, the frat guy from Binghamton reached out to me. He was back in Queens. He was from Queens. He was back in Queens and he was selling perks. So it was perfect. He like came back into my life. He had everything I needed once again. And so then I started doing whatever opiates I could get my hands on. And I had a habit pretty quickly. And I knew at that point I had enough friends that also had a habit.
That it was a thing.
Like I knew what the withdrawal was. I knew when I felt sick what it was. I knew I needed just to get more and I'd be okay. And it really felt like it improved my performance in all things. I tweeted at one point that a Vicodin and a glass of orange juice was the best breakfast for heading to a lecture. Like I felt like I was doing better in school.
You had that perfect brain chemistry for opiates.
Yeah.
At first.
It was perfect.
I had it too. I was producing TV. I was like, this is the best. I don't have to care about anything, and I have energy, and I feel good.
Yeah. And I'm good at everything, and people like me.
That's short-lived. That's a short-lived side effect.
It was short-lived, but it was great. And so, I did those for a while, couple years, and then my dad's still on tour. He was on tour for 5 years. So, I don't know. I'm 22 at this point, maybe 22. And I did my first bag of dope, and because I either didn't have the money for pills and it was cheaper. I don't really remember the situation. I remember I was at this bar that I used to go to on like 110th in Columbus. And this guy sold it to me and I was like, yeah, I'm just going to fucking do it. Do you
remember anything about the scene?
Like the scene at the bar or?
Just like how it happened that you bought heroin.
No, I mean, a lot of my friends that were also doing pills had already switched, but I didn't want to. And so I was like determined. I was like, I would walk if I didn't have money to get a Metro card to get across town. I would walk to these projects on like 70 something and First Avenue to buy these Dilaudid off this guy. Like I would do anything I had to
Seems
get
like such
pills.
a random place to get a random drug. It's like I have this Dilaudid connection on 77th and First. It's amazing.
Well, I had people everywhere. I've come to find out in sobriety. Like every time I come to New York, I go to a neighborhood and I'm like, I didn't really get high here. And then I get here and I'm like, wait, yes, I fucking did. Yeah, so I don't know. Somebody, I think I know who sold it to me. This guy, Daniel, sold me the bag and I did it. And it was great. It was just like doing my pills, like it didn't feel any different. I just did one bag. I started doing it a little bit more. My dad was always paying for this fancy therapist all through this time, right? Like I always had this therapist and she'd be like, don't come here high. And I'd be like, all right. And at one point she gave me an assignment to like keep a journal of all the substances I was doing a day. And very proudly, like a good student, I wrote down everything, half a joint, half a Xanax. Then I took half an Adderall. Then I took, like my whole cocktail and I'd go back and report it to her. And she'd be like, okay, good job. Way to do your homework.
I feel like I had the same assignment. And then like when I would do anything, she'd go, oh, you're practicing harm reduction now, aren't you? And I'd be like, yes.
Yeah, sure. Whatever. Yeah.
Harm reduction was the greatest loophole of mine.
I don't think anybody ever used language like that with me.
I was a total heroin addict at the time.
Yeah.
And I was basically in therapy to overcome.
Did you know you were a heroin addict?
Okay. Yeah, it was really bad.
Yeah.
And I was in therapy to overcome my heroin addiction. So whenever I would describe anything that was a little less, she would say, "Oh, that's really good that you're practicing harm reduction."
You held back this week.
Exactly.
I'm proud of you.
It's like, I also have no money, and the
everything's falling apart.
The methadone is free, and I have to take, benzos. But if I take one instead of 10, she's like,
I get a pat on the back.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. So you're keeping track of the drugs you're taking.
Keeping track.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm doing heroin. Mm-hmm. And I did not want to be doing heroin. To me, that seemed like something a drug addict would do.
Definitely.
Whereas the rest of it did not.
We're party girl drugs.
Yeah.
We're party girl like accessories.
Exactly. And so I called my dad or I talked to my therapist and I called my dad and I told him I was going to go. She recommended I go up to St. Luke's and check myself in. And so I detoxed in the psych ward at St. Luke's.
Why the psych ward though?
Because they don't have like a detox.
Roosevelt?
It's like, no, on 116 or 117?
No, I don't know. I didn't go that one.
Oh, okay. I don't think it was a psych ward.
Okay.
I don't know if there was a separate detox, but I was in the psych ward.
Okay.
It was fun. Mm-hmm. It was interesting. And so I detoxed, thinking I just need a detox, right? Like classic story. If I can just physically not be dependent on these things, like I'll be fine. So they detoxed me on Suboxone, which I'd never taken before. And they gave me I don't remember the dosages, but I was on so much fucking Suboxone. It was crazy. And so I came out, I felt like $1,000,000, you know? Like I felt like myself again. I was like, this is amazing.
On it or not on it?
Not on it. But like I never felt any pain, no discomfort because I was fucking high, right? But like all through detox. I met some very nice guys.
Did you have a psych ward romance?
No,
you
I
never
didn't.
hear about psych ward romances.
I didn't, but I met all of these like older guys from, black guys from Harlem that had great stories and also told me where to get great dope, really nice guys. They taught me how to play chess. We had a great time.
Yeah.
So I got out and I had some friends come over to smoke a blunt to celebrate that I was out of detox, had a couple beers. It was a friend's birthday. Went out to a club for the birthday, started drinking at the club. I went to buy a 20 bag of, I was like, I'm just going to buy a 20 bag of Coke, I'm going to go light. And my friend / he was selling drugs at the time had, I guess he was selling Coke and K, but I didn't know he had K. And so he gave me the wrong bag. So I did the whole bag in one line.
Of the K?
Of the K.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not great.
You're like a ketamine meme.
Yeah, it was not good. I sounded like Chewbacca. I thought I was like, it was just bad. I was carried out of the club on a bouncer's shoulder. Like it was bad. And all my friends got mad at me because I scared them, which was like not a great sign. But in my mind was how fucking dare they, And we were all supposed to go to Izu the next day, and they told me I couldn't go with them because you
were too much of a drug addict.
Yeah.
And then on one hand, you're probably like, I have arrived. And then the other hand, you're like, wait a second.
I was like, well, I'm going to go get some heroin then because fuck you guys.
What's Izu?
Izu was like a music festival. Like
Where?
An electronic music festival. I think it was at Giant MetLife, maybe?
Okay.
It was like...
So they wouldn't take you to the EDM festival?
No.
Because they were very afraid of what you might do. And
Correct.
they're probably right.
Yeah, they were probably right.
Yeah.
Instead, I went and did some heroin because I was like, well, I'll show them.
Right.
And so that just kicked off, the next 3 years were pretty dark. I just started dating this guy, did more and more heroin. At that point, I got a job working for the same financial advisor I worked for at 17 rehired me.
Nice.
And so I was working for him and I was good, like for a long time, I could keep my shit together, Well,
you're not shooting. You have a job. You have a free place to live.
So at that point, my dad came back and he was like, you got to find another place. So I found this apartment in Harlem with the guy I was dating on 132nd and 8th. And it was a 1-bedroom pre-war, huge fucking apartment, rent stabilized for $1,500 a month. It was crazy. It was so nice. It
doesn't exist anymore.
It doesn't exist anymore, but it was very nice. And I just did a lot of heroin.
Here, hold up.
Yeah.
Talk. There we go.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay.
So you're in Harlem doing a lot of heroin.
I'm in Harlem.
You're like the first person that ever happened to.
Yeah, exactly. So my world got really small, like it does, right? And it was just basically him and I and a couple other guys that I would sleep with for drugs and a few other people that got, like, I was thinking about it on my way down here.
Was that a thing? Was that like you would sleep with multiple people at that point?
I had like 2, right? So the guy from Queens that at that point was now selling heroin, thankfully, like he kept up with my habit.
Right.
So he would always sell what I needed.
Right.
He had these Law and Order bags. They were so fucking good. But anyway, he was out in Queens. And so he would pay for my cab out there. Because I'd be sick as a dog. I was like, I'm not getting on the fucking train. Like, there's no way. So he'd pay for my cab out there, give me a bun or 2 on credit. I'd have sex with him. And then he'd pay for my cab back to my boyfriend. And my boyfriend knew what I was doing, but it was like a necessary evil sometimes.
Wow.
And I didn't, he was my ex-boyfriend. I kind of liked, I cared about him. It wasn't like, it didn't feel transactional, even though it was, if that makes sense. It felt like he was doing something nice for me.
And you do something nice for him.
There you go.
And you enjoy each other.
And it wasn't terrible.
But it was like a weird sort. It was like, this is where like because your story to me, it's like, well, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. And then you're like, well, then I would leave my boyfriend to go fuck this other guy and get a few bundles of heroin and go back to my boyfriend, who would be happy I did because I'd have the heroin.
The free heroin.
That's when you really qualify to be on the show.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much. We're getting to the point. Yeah.
I think this is where it gets to like, and it's funny because you describe it as though it wasn't that.
Right.
You know,
I do.
which is fantastic also.
Yeah.
Because it's like that, it's this slippery slope. You don't know where you're actually slipping.
Yeah.
And it's like one, you know.
And it all feels so normal when you're doing it. It's like, I have no choice but to do this. This is like my life.
It fit into the lifestyle.
Yeah.
For sure.
For sure.
It's like, and then what happens?
So we get high like that for a long time. I mean, a lot of crazy shit happened that should have been.
Those are a few like inspiration of serious drug addict memes.
What?
Thinking it's coke and it's ketamine.
Oh, yeah.
And then like your boyfriend letting you go see the other guy to come home with heroin.
It is. It's a one big like
dank meme.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Dank recovery meme.
Yes.
So ultimately what ends up happening is, kind of the decline was Luke kept having these seizures. Were very, at the time, somewhat inconvenient. And so like one day he went out to
boyfriend in Harlem.
Yeah. He went to get like a pack of cigarettes and like seized out in the deli. So I had to like chase the ambulance so they wouldn't admit him because we couldn't afford the hospital bill, you know, and tell them it's fine. He does that. Like, this is what he does.
Was it benzo related seizures?
So he had a couple seizures before he was addicted to benzos, but his psychiatrist did have him on 4 milligrams of Xanax a day to combat the seizures, which is really counterintuitive that they treat seizures with benzos, but what the fuck ever.
Well, it's because you're addicted to the benzos.
Right.
So when you go in withdrawal, they know if you take benzos, you won't seize.
Well, yeah, but it's like
But
this
then when
vicious,
you run out, you're going to seize again.
But they gave him, so before he was addicted to benzos, they gave him benzos to treat the seizures because nobody knew what the seizures were.
Well, they give like Klonopin to epileptics.
Right.
And then when you run out of Klonopin, you become an epileptic.
But then when we became drug addicts, we started selling the Xanax. Like we'd keep a certain amount for ourselves because he also got, I think, 40 milligrams of Valium a day. I had my own Xanax prescription and an Adderall prescription. He had an Adderall prescription, the Xanax, the Valium. So we were selling most of our pills to pay for our heroin habit, keeping some. But
it's amazing. It really got to a horrible place. Really, it's like,
I don't think it was going super well.
You don't realize the water's up to your neck.
Yeah, like
it all seemed okay. It all seemed okay to me until this point.
Yeah, no, it was getting worse and worse, like it does. You know, like little things were happening. Like the ketamine thing was probably like the first thing that I was like, fuck these people, but like also like maybe they're right. You know. But like, fuck them, you know, I'm just going to do what I want to do anyway. So one time, we used to get dope from this delivery service, which is a misnomer because they would only deliver to Williamsburg and Union Square. So they wouldn't.
You have to go there.
You had to go to them.
Yeah.
So it's not a delivery service, but it was called, the code like in the text was like Nino's Pastry Shop. And then you had to like tell them what kind of pastries you wanted. And they started delivering at 5.
Well, what are the codes?
I don't fucking remember. That's like the fucked up thing.
I need a biscotti.
It was like I don't remember, but it was there was very specific things that you had to say. What the fuck? I don't remember what it was.
I need a coconut cream
donut.
I need a crack-filled donut and a heroin baguette, please.
With a side of I don't know, Krispy Kreme. But so if we would sometimes like go out to Williamsburg because I was that sick that like I needed the 5 o'clock drop off, but that was really desperate. So most of the time we'd meet him at that Taco Bell on 14th Street. You know the one I'm talking about?
Yeah, we used to buy Xanax in there from a guy named Phoenix.
Oh, of course his name was Phoenix. That's wonderful. This guy, yeah. So Nino.
I want to know the bakery codes. I need a crackling. You know, I don't know.
I don't remember. I wish I could remember. I just remember that it was called the Pastry Shop. That's all I remember. But so we would meet him on 14th Street. And at this point, Aaron, that's my husband's name, Luke wouldn't give me this guy's number. So I had to go through him every time.
Yes, protect the source.
Right. So he he had another seizure at some point. So his mom had made him go to a neurologist, and they were doing a EEG or whatever it's called. Like, they had all these electrodes on his, it was like a take home EEG. So he had all these fucking wires coming out of his head. So we're dope sick. And nobody else is good in our neighborhood. We had a couple, drug dealers in Harlem that we used, but like none of them were like answering or whatever. I was like, I need the guy's number. Like, I need to go get it. We're both like, what the fuck is wrong with you? He could always stand being dope sick a lot longer than I could. I had like no tolerance for not feeling well. And so he's like, no, I'm not giving you the number. I'll come with you. I'm like, okay. So he puts a beanie over these fucking electrodes.
That's crazy.
And we go downtown. We take the train downtown. We get there, and we're like waiting for him. There's a Starbucks between, I think it's like 6th and 7th, and then there's like the Starbucks, and then there's like the Wendy's, Taco Bell, whatever.
Yes.
So we're walking to the Starbucks to use the bathroom to get high, finally. He starts seizing outside of the Starbucks.
Oh, no. And you're like, fucking hell.
I was like, what the fuck?
Can I just get high?
Like, I'm so sick. I don't have time for this. So I'm trying to convince, there's a crowd around us now. And I'm like, it's fine. He does this all the time. Like, please don't call 911. Like, we're good. You could just carry on, like, he'll be fine.
My boyfriend's dying. Just let him go.
Just leave it alone.
Leave him alone.
We have things to do today. And so
that's like a dream. It's like you have heroin in your pocket, and everything.
And you can't get everything that goes wrong.
Yeah, and your boyfriend's seizing outside of Starbucks, wearing the electrode hat,
which is good for the test actually, because they could see where the seizure came from. But so somebody calls 911, the ambulance comes, whatever. So they ask you like a million questions after you have a seizure to see like how oriented you are. So that, look, what's your birthday? What year is it? Who's the president? Whatever.
Where did you get to use in that situation?
We haven't yet.
Still.
We're waiting for the fucking EMTs to leave us alone.
Right.
So we get through the test. They're like, all right, we won't take him in, because I'm begging them. I'm like, please don't send us to the hospital. He literally does this all the time. Like, it's fine. They're like, okay, but take him home in a cab. And I was like, we don't have money for a cab. We are getting on the train. And the guy took $20 out of his wallet and gave it to me and said, take him home in a cab.
And you bought more heroin with
Of course we did.
the 20.
Yeah, we had to get high. We were sick.
Yes.
It was like, what else were we going to do? Very nice guy, though. Shout out to that guy.
And that's when the scam of having him have seizures in front of the Starbucks started, where every week.
No, but that would have been a good scam. Yeah. No, that was a one and done. So it was like that, right? And then he was selling drugs on Craigslist, which is really the dumbest fucking thing you could do. So he sold to an undercover cop in the Whole Foods on 59th Street. And
Luke did?
Yeah.
What
I was at
sell?
work.
What was he selling?
He was selling heroin. Yeah. And
he would just middleman it from the Williamsburg people?
So what we'd do is like we'd pay whatever, like $80 a bundle, and we'd sell it for $25 a bag. You know what I mean?
Who was buying it for $25 a bag?
NYU kids,
right.
Columbia kids, kids that weren't from New York that didn't know anyone else to get it.
Right.
Like they'd pay crazy prices for Adderall.
Sick people.
Those fucking college kids, man, they were our bread and butter. This one girl would Venmo us the money before we gave her the pills. I couldn't believe it.
That's a good deal.
Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Her dad was like a doctor or something. Anyway, so he gets arrested. He's got every dollar we have in his pocket when he gets arrested, and it's a Thursday, and he doesn't get seen Friday. So he's in the tombs until Monday. I don't have a key to our apartment. I don't have any money, and I'm pissed.
Sick too, probably.
Sick, whatever. So I mean, as we mentioned, I had other guys that would take care of me, so I figured it out and whatever. But he got out, and he basically was given a choice. He could go to treatment to a therapeutic community for 18 months, or he could go to jail. And he was going to just go to jail. And I was like, if you go to jail, I will not be here when you get back. I can promise you that. At that point, I wanted to stop. I just didn't know how. Like, I was like, this is not fucking for me. You know, we were hanging out with this couple who had a 2-year-old, and the 2-year-old was always with us, getting high in our apartment, smoking, you know, like, and we thought it was funny that he would take a Metro card and like pretend to be chopping drugs up on the coffee table. And I don't know where that little boy is, but I think about him a lot, because that was like when I was like, I don't know if I should be doing this.
That was
like
that was God showing you a sign.
This seems
See
like
the 2-year-old cutting up lines. Right?
like, this might be wrong.
Yeah.
And I had drug dealers that were telling me like this guy he was sober, but he sold drugs. He would tell me, you're not about this life. Like, you got to get out. You got to get out of here. And so whatever. So Luke's got the choice to go to jail or go to treatment. He says he's going to go to jail, whatever. We're fighting a lot. Then I got arrested on my lunch break at the financial office. So the financial advisor I worked for had an office in New York, and he had a satellite office in New Jersey. And I was working out of the New Jersey office that day. And I would go to, there was a mall across the street. So I would go there for lunch, except I wasn't really eating. And I'd just go steal shit because that's what I would do.
Stealing is very exciting.
I love stealing. I loved stealing.
Do you steal anymore?
No, I don't.
Never?
Never.
It's a big deal?
Like once in a while, I will be in the Target self-checkout and realize afterward that I didn't pay for something and I'm not going back.
So what were you stealing when you got busted?
Like some jewelry from me, like nothing crazy. It was actually like the lightest haul I'd ever had. So I got arrested for shoplifting at 17. That was my first ever arrest. And I had $1,500 worth of stolen goods on my person. So this was like 200.
When you were a kid?
Yeah.
You got arrested stealing $1,500 worth. Were you high then?
Probably like smoking weed, but
Right.
like nothing crazy.
When was the first time you shoplifted?
I don't know, probably like my senior year of high school. It was like a thing that I did for fun. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I wanted to see how much I could get away with. Every fucking Dwayne Reed in New York City, I think I stole like all the nail polish out of. I used to love stealing nail polish. I never really painted my nails, but I loved, when I was high, I just loved the colors. I thought they were so pretty.
Right, and they were free.
Yeah, and they were, exactly. Everything was free if I wanted it bad enough, you know?
So they catch you. What are you stealing when they catch you?
I think just some jewelry from Macy's. I don't think I had anything else.
You're like a giant diamond.
No.
I stole a diamond.
It was probably
necklace.
like fake jewelry. Like it was nothing like worth having, to be honest.
And the security's like, miss.
Yeah.
Let me check your bag.
Yeah. They put their arm around me and they said, we're going to have you come downstairs, as I was trying to walk out of the store. And I was like, fuck, I knew that. Because I got caught by a secret shopper in a Macy's when I was 17, which is funny because they told me I was banned from Macy's for 7 years. And it was exactly like 7 years later
7-year anniversary.
that I got arrested.
Did you tell them? Did you know
No,
who
I didn't
was?
mention it at the time.
Right.
I was a little shook. And I needed to get back to work. Like that was my biggest concern, is I needed to get back to the office. And so I was trying to explain this to the security lady. Like, I have a job. I'm on my lunch break. Like, you can have it back. Like, I got to go.
I fence jewelry at my job, and you're really putting a kink in my day.
But she was like, I'm sorry, but like, you can't go anywhere. And she left me in this room. She said she was going to call the cops.
See, I think that's like an entitlement thing. When you get busted and you're like, I gotta go.
Like, I have a job.
Yeah, I've been busted so many times. I was like, you don't understand. I need to leave.
Like,
we know you want to leave.
To go.
We know you want to leave, but that's not what's going to happen.
Oh, I was insane. So the cops show up. So she tells me she's going to call the cops. And I'm like, oh, fuck. I have bags of dope in my cigarette box, like in the cellophane in the cigarette box. So I was like, cops definitely know to look there. They're going to search me when they get here. So I pulled it out and I put it in my bra, not realizing they left me in a room with a fucking video.
Right.
So the lady comes in, she's like, now I gotcha.
Right.
And she literally like grabs my bra, pulls it out, and they fall out of my shirt. And she puts them on the table and she's like, you're screwed, basically. And so the cops got there. I'm trying to talk my way out of it. I'm like, listen, like, I was like, isn't this decriminalized? Like, they had just decriminalized pot. So like, I guess I thought like all drugs were just good to go. Like,
especially heroin.
Yeah, I was like, it's not. And then I was like, but it's mine. Like, I'm not selling it to kids. I need it. It's my medicine. Like, I need that.
Did you say that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like arguing. I was like, this, you don't understand. Like, I need that. And I'm not doing anything wrong. Like,
no
it's
one's getting
mine.
hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? And he was like, no, it's illegal, and we're taking it, and we're taking you back to the station. Okay. So I text my boss real quick that I witnessed a crime, and I've got to go down to the police station to file a report. He's like, okay, whatever. Just get me some sort of proof that that's where you were. Like, okay. So they process me, whatever. They let me go on my own recognizance. And so I walk back to the office to get my stuff, go home, whatever. And then the next couple weeks, I'm like, fuck. Like, he keeps asking for the proof. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do here. So I ultimately decided to take my summons and Sharpie out. Like, I redacted it because I thought that would be, like, I didn't know what else to do.
What do you mean you redacted it?
Like, it took out my name. I Sharpied out anything that would be indicative of it actually being me that was the criminal, so it would just be that's what I witnessed.
Right.
And then I held it up to the light. You could see through it. So I made photocopies of it. I'm trying everything
to get out of this.
Yeah. And nothing's working. So I'm like, fuck it. I just got to put it on his desk and pray. So I put it on his desk and I leave. I go back to my desk and he's like, Allegra, can you come in here a sec? I'm like, sure. He's like, I'm less mad that you got arrested on your lunch break and more mad that you put this thing on my desk. Like, do you think I'm a fucking idiot? He's like, if you hold it up to the light, I can read everything.
Why did you put it on his desk at all?
Because he asked for some sort of proof.
That you got arrested?
No, where I was all day, that I never came back. And I told him I had witnessed a crime. Oh. So he was like, get like a letter from the police department or like something accounting for where you were.
So you give him the arrest report. You should have typed something up yourself.
It was my best thinking at the time. I was like, this is...
That's great.
I don't know.
So you give him the arrest report instead.
Yeah.
Allegra stole jewelry and had heroin in her cigarettes. And that's why she please excuse her from work today.
Yes, exactly. Uh-huh. Yeah. So he wasn't like super impressed. But he didn't let me go. He was like, you need help. And I was like, yeah, I know. Whatever. So, and then like a week later, he got the credit card bill. So I would like plan all the client events and stuff like that, buy all the gifts for clients, do all kinds of stuff for him. But so I had a company card. And so about a year before that, I had started using the company card to buy anything I needed that wasn't drugs so that all my money could go to drugs.
Right.
With the company card. And he got the Amex statement and he looked at it more closely and he called me into his office and he was like, you've got to go. Right. He was like, I'm going to let you resign. You're going to pay me back this money.
Right.
And because I don't want to fuck up your whole life. If you ever want to work in finance, if I fire you, that'll be it for you. But you've got to go and I hope you get help. So that happened. And now I've got this possession charge, but like I wasn't really worried about that. Like genuinely, I was like, it's kind of whatever. Luke's like either going to go to jail or treatment. I now don't have a job. My dad is like pounding on our door of our apartment like every couple months.
Like what the fuck is going on?
I know what's going on, and I don't want you to die. Like please, and I'd like yell through the door, you can't fucking come in here. Like just go away. Like really. One day I opened the door and shoved him. And I remember hearing him through the door calling the cops saying, my daughter's in her apartment and I know she's using drugs. And hearing him say, no, she's 25. Well, can you at least send somebody just to make sure she's okay in there?
Right.
And like hearing him, knowing how helpless he must have felt.
Right.
And even in my I felt like a piece of shit.
Right.
But I couldn't do anything different, like that's just what it was. Like I felt very much like I bought this life and I got to dedicate myself to it now.
It's your life. Yeah, I get it.
So then Luke and I got in a big fight and I like pulled a knife on him. I was a little crazy. And so he was like, he kicks me out of the apartment. So then I was technically homeless for a couple weeks, although I couch surfed a little bit. I broke into the hostel up on Amsterdam and 102nd or whatever. I met some tourists, and European tourists carry a lot of cash.
Right. Did you rob the tourists?
Yeah, for sure. I sure did. And I stayed there until the people that run the hostel figured out what I was doing and kicked me out. And then one night I had nowhere to stay. and it rained. And I was like, fuck. Like, I'm actually not about this life. You know, like, this is, I don't